What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 100 of the Jacksonian. I'm yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and I'm here with a legend in the writing in all of college football, the managing editor of Last Word on College Football himself, Tony Siracusa, as we're going over quite a lot about what's going on with the world of college football from NIL to possible CFP expansion and also a little bit of Wake Forest. Could they sneak a little upset in 2026? Well, it's a possibility because I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a good time for a long time, all right here on episode 100 of the Jacksonian as we are back in style. How you doing today, good buddy?
Jackson, it's an honor to be on your show and episode number 100. I feel like a privileged guest, an honored guest here to be on episode 100 of the Jacksonian. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you for coming on, good buddy. It's an honor to have you on here. And for those who don't know about you and the magic you create, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, like you said, I'm the managing editor for Last Word on College Football. We've got a great team of writers spread out all across the country covering different college football beats. The nice thing about the group of writers that we have is we're all junkies at a probably relatively sick level when it comes to college football. Live it, breathe it, eat it all year round. We don't wait for the season to jump in before we get all up into our coverage of everything. We've got writers, credentialed writers embedded with programs all across the country. And so they're there at spring camp and they're there talking to the coaches and the players. And so it's a great group of people, and they make the site what it is. I think I've been with Last Word for, let's say, probably about 8 years now, maybe 9. I think probably 9 sounds more about right. I was at the ground level when we were starting it, and there was the company because it's part of the Last Word on Sports network. And this network covers sports all over the world. We have, last count, about 350 writers all around the world. We've got people in Europe covering soccer and tennis, and we've got people in New Zealand and Australia covering rugby, and we got people covering cricket. They've tried to explain cricket to me. My eyes kind of glaze over. I'm like, any sport that takes 2 to 3 days to complete one match, I'm out. I don't have that kind of time. We've got people covering, obviously, the NFL and college football and Major League Baseball, all that. So huge network. I was there early on, and I think when we started the college football group, it wasn't even really its own department. It was, I think, 3 or 4 of us just writing whatever it is we could get out there. Now we've got, nearly a couple dozen writers, and we're turning out 1 million page views a year. And so it's a great group of people, and a bunch of them are members of the Football Writers Association. Like I know you are now. You are a new member of the Football Writers Association.
I'm the new kid.
That's awesome, man, because it means you get a vote for the All-American team. You get to cast a ballot. I'm on the board of directors, so I'm one of the 20 people on the All-American committee, that group of 20 that makes the final decision on the All-American team and the Outland Trophy and the Nagurski and things like that. So it's we stay busy, man. We stay busy all year round.
Well, the way I look at it, I've always heard that what you want to do is make sure you find your dream job, and I know that covering college football is a dream job for the both of us. That's for sure.
It is. I honestly, I don't remember why I ever did anything else before this. I got a degree in journalism about 5 lifetimes ago, worked in media, then worked in radio, but managing radio stations in Los Angeles. And my wife, and then I started with this group, and I'm like, wait, why did I ever do those other jobs, man? This is too much fun. And my wife and I moved from Los Angeles out to Charlotte, North Carolina about 4 years ago. So I moved from covering what used to be the Pac-12 when the Pac-12 originally existed and covering UCLA to now covering the ACC and Wake Forest, and dip into some SEC coverage. And then, of course, tons of national coverage on, like you said, all the kind of chaos that goes on nowadays in college football.
I mean, did you ever think in your lifetime you'd ever see Wake Forest Cal be a conference game or Wake Forest Stanford? Like, I mean, because like if I was like I was watching Wake Forest Stanford one night in 2011, I never thought it would be a conference game at 13 years old. Like,
no,
great.
it's insane. It really is pretty ridiculous. But Stanford and Cal and SMU, when they joined a couple of years ago, the ACC did it out of desperation. The ACC charter mandates that there be 14 teams in the conference. And we were starting to look down the barrel of lawsuits from Clemson and Florida State looking for ways to get out of the conference. So the ACC kind of had to, with all the realignment that was out there with UCLA and USC and Oregon and Washington moving to the Big Ten, and Arizona State and Utah and Arizona and so forth, moving to the Big 12. This was a way for them to ensure that they were going to always have their 14 teams that was mandated by their contract with ESPN, and it's in their charter. It was funny because when I moved here, there was the grant of rights for the TV broadcast and the charter for the conference. And man, those were talked about like they were granite, like they were just, Moses coming down the mountain with the tablets, right? I mean, and they were allegedly locked away in a vault in the ACC headquarters. You couldn't see them. And it took me about 2 weeks to use my sources to get copies of them and be able to look through them. And the ACC created a lot of chaos for itself. And the end result of that is Cal and Stanford and SMU joining the conference.
Oh man, SMU, them being in the ACC, it's kind of like when TCU was in the Mount West from 05 to 2011, where they're just winning all over the place. I mean, it feels eerily similar, especially with Rhett Lashley just leading the charge for SMU.
Yeah, Rhett Lashley is a good coach. He's done a really good job there. I mean, he had a lot to pick up from when they had Sonny Dykes. I actually covered SMU for 1 year during the Sonny Dykes era as well. And Sonny was a great guy, great coach to cover, but it was still kind of recovering from the damage Chad Morris did to the SMU program because, man, he was terrible there. But there's just this geographical nonsense that, you get Syracuse having to go to Stanford, for a Saturday afternoon game. And it's ridiculous. But again, it was, and they had to cut deals to make this work with none of the three new schools jumping onto the TV revenue right away. Because part of what happened with the Big Ten and the Big 12 was when they got their new schools through all this realignment, the TV contract revenue went up. There were escalator clauses, so the money went up. That didn't happen with the ACC. There is no escalator clause. There is no more money for them from ESPN until the end of the contract in 2036. So these guys had to agree to not take a cut of the TV revenue for a while. And, if you're Stanford, you can afford it. They're what I call an endowment-rich school. They have, at last count, I'm going to say it's 6 or 7 different athletic programs that don't get paid for out of the athletic department budget. They get paid for out of endowments. There are boosters that pay for the rowing team or the beach volleyball team or whatever the case may be. And then you get SMU, which is conversely a cash-rich school. The athletic director goes to the boosters. They've got tons of oil money. The question went out, how much money is it going to cost you to not have this TV contract for the first, whatever it is, 5 years? They estimated about $300 million. That money was raised within about 3 weeks from boosters. So it wasn't an issue for them. And then, like you said, from a football standpoint, they certainly became competitive right away.
For sure. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what we saw a few weeks back from the national government, the White House, where they decided the urgent national action to save college sports is going to be legalized starting in August 1st of 2026. What was your reaction when you saw that for the
Yeah,
world of college sports?
yeah, it's a nice theory. I wouldn't hold your breath come August 1st, 2026. Um, they had this meeting and all of the commissioners were there and other power brokers in the world of college sports, particularly college football. Urban Meyer was there and Nick Saban. Of course, they get invitations because they're golf buddies of the president. So, they get the automatic invitation. I'm really not quite sure why the Secretary of State was in this meeting or the Secretary of the Interior. Look, it was a meeting which stated the obvious. We got a lot of problems in college sports, a lot of chaos. It was unintended chaos, but it was a byproduct of the NCAA being really pretty inept. And I know that a lot of blame goes to the ideas of name, image, and likeness. Look, man, I talked to Ed O'Bannon after his lawsuit against the NCAA, which was the foundation for NIL, right? Ed was sitting there, a member of the 1995 UCLA national championship team. And Ed's sitting there playing his EA Sports college basketball game. And there he is in the game. And he's like, wait a minute, I didn't get paid for that, nor did I say it's okay to use me in the game. And the issue was and remains, frankly, is the rights to own your name, image, and likeness. Look, if someone wants to make T-shirts with your picture on it for your show, you have a right to make the money off of that. You own it. But college athletes didn't.
I want my 20.
That's right, exactly. But college athletes were being told you don't have the right to that. Everybody else does, but you don't. Ed took him to court. He won in federal court, obviously. What happened after that, though, was completely opposite of what Ed ever wanted. It wasn't about the money. It was about we have the same rights as everybody else, all the other students on campus, right? As soon as that started, though, the collectives came in. And you know what happened with the collectives. It was legalized money laundering. It was just, we're going to collect all this money. We're going to dole it out as need be, pay for play for the players, and that's that. We move on to, what was it, last year with the House versus NCAA settlement, where it really kind of pushed the collectives aside, said we're going to have revenue sharing, legalized revenue sharing. 20.5 million is the cap for each school. How you spend it, it's up to you. Spend it all on your women's volleyball team if you want. It's up to you. Spend it all on football, whatever. There's still a lot of issues with that. But between NIL, let me back up for 10 seconds. What really happened with the NIL lawsuits is it showed the NCAA has been acting in violation of federal antitrust laws for about the last 80 years. And so now we got this flood of lawsuits, right? And that's really where we get this meeting at the White House. We got players suing for a 7th and 8th year of eligibility. We got, the Diego Pavias saying, wait a second, my junior college years shouldn't count against my eligibility because the NCAA doesn't have jurisdiction over junior college football. It's a constant. And the NCAA was just getting hammered in court. Really stopped fighting a lot of these lawsuits because they're getting hammered. It turns out they don't have the legal rights that they had been exercising for all these years. And I know that for every sports fan, college sports fan, we all have this image of the NCAA as this massive organization sitting on this dark hillside with lightning bolts and clouds and storms, and the ugly,
Oh,
evil
yeah.
empire, right? The NCAA put aside all of their people who work there on licensing agreements and TV and whatever. When it comes to the functioning of the rules of college sports, the NCAA has all of 30 employees. That's it. That's all they got, man. They don't have the ability to manage what they're supposed to be managing. And the NCAA, when you look at it, is the schools. I mean, that's who belongs to the NCAA, or all the schools. All the people on the rules committees and the competition committees, they're the athletic directors from the schools and the school presidents and the school coaches. So the schools are the NCAA, and now you have this clash because the schools want their players for, Ole Miss wants a 7th year with Trinidad Chambliss, right?
Ugh.
And so they go and fight their own governing body. It's chaos. So we go back to this meeting, and what comes from the meeting is a bunch of people stating the obvious things that you and I already knew of what was working and what isn't working with college sports. What to do about it? Well, there's the whole new issue. What to do about it? President Trump, a couple of weeks later, signed an executive order, which is what he made demands of the NCAA, and the start date that you mentioned, August 1st of 2026, doesn't matter. The executive order has absolutely no jurisdiction over college sports. The president of the United States has absolutely zero jurisdiction over what is the private entity of college sports. The NCAA is a private entity. Even though it's made up of public schools and private schools, it's a private entity. So there's nothing that's going to happen from that executive order other than more conversation, more talk, more lawsuits, whatever the case may be. And I don't, there are things that are fixable, things that are not currently fixable. The transfer portal. You probably see this and hear this a lot. Your fan base, your audience complains that people can leave whenever. They can go to 4 different schools in 4 different years. I see all these people who say, well, you should be allowed 1 free transfer. Free meaning it doesn't cost you any eligibility. After that, you got to sit out a year. Look, that's great. It's fine. It's the way it was when I was growing up. It's also illegal. Every other student on campus is free to transfer whenever they want. Your engineering majors, your biology majors, your English majors are free to go to 4 different schools in 4 years. You can't go back to the way it was when certain players, when the athletes don't have the same rights as other students on campus. So the portal is what it's going to be.
Oh yeah, and it's like some people may have like family members that are sick, and they may have to go to different locations to make sure that they're taking care of their family members. Like there's like one kid that has to go to Illinois to make sure their mom's all right, make sure they're going to the best hospital, or someplace in LA, California, or maybe the UAB Medical Center, Birmingham, Alabama is going to fix them. Like that's the thing. Some people don't ever think about, because it's like it's like some of the fans, they get mad about the players, but it's like it's not always like I want to be paid like that guy who gets paid
boy, I think you bring up a great point. Whenever someone transfers, I think the first thing people jump to is it was about the money. And I hate this phrase, but go get the bag. It's the bag. Yeah, I hate that phrase. But it's not always that. Sometimes it's just about playing time. Sometimes it's just about, I'm not happy at this school. People transfer for those reasons all the time. Non-athletes transfer for those reasons all the time. So you got to let the athletes do it. And look, I tell fan bases all the time to talk to me. I was a guest speaker at the Raleigh Sports Club luncheon in Raleigh, North Carolina, right over by NC State a couple months ago. And people were talking to me about it. And I said, look, my advice to all the old timer fans, people like me, is you got to learn to love the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. You got to root for the school with the understanding that roster is going to go through an overhaul pretty regularly, because that's just the reality of it. And some of it is money. Some of it is guys come in with their agents and, they want X amount of dollars. And the school said, the football GM says, we're not going to pay that for you. We can't, or we don't want to. Then fine, they're going to go somewhere else. That's the reality of it. The idea that you're going to have a player for 4 or 5 years in your system now, that's the old days, and that doesn't exist anymore. And there's really not much hope it's going to exist anytime soon in the future.
Oh yeah, and I would like for there to be 40 westerns on television like there were in the 1950s, like way before I was even a thought, or where my parents were a thought. But life doesn't go the way I want. I'm not going to sit and throw a hissy fit about it. What I'll do is make a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, everything. If something doesn't go your way, make sure you got a plan B through Z. That's the thing you got to do.
And it's the coaches who can adapt are the coaches who will succeed. It's not, again, going to the money. There's an assumption every year that the programs with the biggest payroll, because we're already finding ways to get around the revenue sharing cap, right? We're finding ways to get around it. Players are going in, and what's happening is their contracts, it's unimaginable to me. Ed O'Bannon fought all those years for you to have your name, image, and likeness rights. What's happening on these contracts now is the players are selling, they're giving away their name, image, and likeness rights back to the school. And the school can then put it on the jerseys and other marketing and merchandising, and it allows them to give a different funnel of money to the players so they can exceed that $20 million cap. There's always going to be a way to where people are going to find a way around the rules. But, look, it's sometimes it is the team that has the most money. But did Texas Tech win the national championship last year? They did not. They had their $40 million from Cody Campbell, and they got beat by Oregon. So, you know what? You have to have the player. No matter what, you have to have the players. You have to have coaches who can adapt to the way things are. Like Jake Dicker at Wake Forest tells me, adapt or die. That's you got to go along with it. And this will drive some coaches out. I will tell you, it's a huge part of the reason Dave
Clawson, Jeff Halfley.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Dave Clawson. It's part of the reason he left. Dave Clawson, in theory, loved the NIL, was in favor of players should be able to have that. In theory, he loved the portal, but with Wake Forest's limited resources, he hated the system. He went 4-8 in back-to-back seasons and was talking about, I couldn't get the defensive secondary that I wanted. I couldn't get the defensive backs I wanted. So he was like, I'm out. It drove him out. It drove other coaches out. It's driving some athletic directors out. Dan Radakovich of Miami is going to retire. He's done with this. He's over it. The athletic director at Virginia Tech is retiring. They're done with it. And I get that. But there's a whole new breed behind them who knows how to work the system.
There you go. There's always a whole new breed. And of course, also, there's been a lot of talks that we could see some more expansion to the CFP and how that could be 24 teams. I kind of want it to be down to 8. I wish it was the old way, but I know we're not in the old way. That ship has long sailed.
Right.
How do you feel when you hear the calls for 24 teams? What do you think?
I hate it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Look, as it is, we're already going to do a lot of tinkering with the schedule, right? We have to, because the fact that the national championship game is now the third week of January is ridiculous.
Not even on a Saturday.
Well, and not only that, but we get stories like, if you remember, Carson Beck was taking grief for saying, yeah, I'm not in school. Well, why would he be? It was the spring semester already at the University of Miami. He'd already graduated in December. We're treating college football like it's a one semester sport, but yet we're playing all the way into the third week of January when everybody has already started the spring semester. So there's a lot of ridiculousness in this. Part of what we're going to see, I think, in the coming year or two is week 0 is going to become week 1. We may still call it week 0. Who cares? Who cares what we call it? But we're going to move the start of the season for everybody. Because right now, week 0, we get what? 5, 6 games, 7 games, maybe. Yeah. We're going to see everybody get moved up to that week. We will eventually see the end of the conference championship games. They're unnecessary. When we're taking the top 2 or 3 or 4 teams from all the Power 4 conferences or whatever it is we're going to take, you don't need those conference championship games anymore. They were a moneymaker that doesn't make as much money anymore now, right? The SEC is anticlimactic. The ACC conference championship game is, a half-filled Bank of America stadium. Same for the Big 12 and the Big 10. We don't need them anymore. That frees up another week to move everything up. That doesn't mean to me we need to add another layer of playoffs. It means we need to take everything and push it up another week or two so that we're ending the college football season no later than January 8th or 9th or whatever, right? It doesn't mean we need to add more playoffs. We really don't. But to your point, with talking about the money, we had the 14 playoff. It was fine. It was good.
Yeah.
Had some blowouts, but that's always the case anyway. That's just college sports. That's just the way it goes. But they made money, right? And so once they made money, they're like, oh, well, look at the opportunities here. They skipped right over expanding to 8 and went all the way to 12. How do you get there? Really? There are not 12 teams. You cannot, we've had it, 2 years now? You cannot find any of those seasons where there were 12 teams who had a legitimate shot to win the national championship. They didn't. I mean, there were 2, 3 maybe, right? So what are we doing? We don't need to turn this into, college basketball, which is going to expand also apparently, but this isn't college basketball where, hey, on any given day, the number 16 seed gets a hot shooting day and beats a 1 seed, or a 12 beats a 5 every year because they get hot for, a second half of shooting. This is college football. This is a different game, man. This is physical and a beat down and all about your skill set players. And the 12 seed is not going, and certainly the 24 seed is not going to have a legit. They might win a game. Okay, whatever. But you're dragging the season on by doing this. You're dragging and you're saturating the product, right? You can have the first round or first 2 rounds now, I guess, on the college campuses, and you'll get good crowds, but you can't repeat that week after week after week, because now you're talking about a 4-week-long, playoff, which take into, content all the scheduling issues, and you'll stretch it out into 8 weeks. You can't do that.
And how many more ball games get cut? That's what
right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, and I'm okay with cut. I love the bowl games because I'm old and I grew up watching all the bowl games. And at this stage of my life, I still watch all the bowl games. even if I wasn't covering college football for a living, there's a bowl game on a Thursday afternoon between Christmas and New Year's at 3 in the afternoon. Yeah, it's on the TV in my office. There's no question about it. But the bowl games serve a purpose for the cities that host them. There's all of this revenue. There's tourism dollars. There's money for the local restaurants and the hotels. So they serve a good purpose for that. Are there too many? Yes. We are apparently adding the Puerto Rico Bowl this year, which is going to be 2 group of 5 teams. Okay, so be it. And they're bringing back the Poinsettia Bowl in San Diego, which I had forgotten that there ever was a Poinsettia Bowl.
Oh, I remember the 07 one with Navy and Utah. That was
good memory.
That was Ken Namatololo's debut.
That's right.
He was the interim coach as Paul Johnson left for
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. And Navy almost won thanks to recovering an onside kick against Utah, but they were close, but no cigar. And a year later, an unbeaten Boise State team was going against a 10-2 TCU team on 2 days before Christmas, and TCU won that one.
That's right. That's absolute, man. It's a great memory. Look, can we shave about 5 or 6 bowl games off? Yeah, probably so. But you're right. If we're going to go to a 2014 playoff, we're going to cut the bowls all the way down to like 20, because otherwise you're not going to have enough. You're not going to have enough bowl eligible teams to compete. I can see them going to 16. 24 is an absurd leap. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, like 24 teams, it's just then somebody's going to call for 32 or 48 or 64 because, that one team got left out.
Yeah, because the team ranked 25th in the last poll of the season thinks they should have gotten in ahead of the team that's ranked 23rd, to which my response would usually be, who cares? It's seriously. We're debating between number 23 and number 25. That's like the basketball tournament debating between number 68 and the 4 play-in, teams, or the 4 play-in games. And seriously, stop it. You're going to kill the golden goose at some point, because you're going to saturate it to a point where the revenue does not climb at the same level of the expansion.
Well, because we saw it started with the group of 5 teams, and we see like a couple Power 4 teams sitting out a bowl game because, that game doesn't matter, or we don't have enough players because they're all leaving, or the coaches have all gone to a newer place, like particularly Iowa State 2025, Marshall in 2024, and now I'm just kind of thinking, because kind of like how we see players sitting out the season finale in the regular season, I can't help but wonder, if we're seeing playoff expansion, are we going to be seeing players sitting out rivalry week? Or I doubt they're going to have conference championships. They're having 24 teams. But it's like, I keep thinking that could have, not saying it will, but I'm thinking it could.
It absolutely could. Look, every time we make these wholesale changes to the sport, we wind up with these unintended consequences, right? And like you said, we started with guys sitting out bowl games. They were saving themselves physically, for the NFL workouts and the combine and working out with their trainers, and you don't want to get hurt. Totally get that. Nobody wants to be Marcus Lattimore, right?
No.
And so you totally get it. But
the 2016 Fiesta Bowl scared everybody.
Oh, absolutely. But then you got them sitting out some of the earlier games. You had players who were you had quarterbacks at North Carolina State playing 4 games and then benching themselves in order to save their eligibility. So what happens from that? Now we have the Coaches Association voting to make the red shirt number 9 games. You can now play 9 games and still red shirt. We get into this ridiculousness with this. And it's a fair question that you ask. At what point will the players stop sitting out? I will tell you, having been made privy to some of the revenue sharing contracts at different schools, one of the things some of the schools are starting to do is you stagger the payments to the players. They get paid usually once a month. There are certain months they don't get paid. They're not getting paid during the summer or whatever. But there are stipulations in there that you don't get paid in December. You'll get that December money in January. But if you sit out our postseason games, you forfeit that money. You're not getting the money in January. So it's the money is compelling the players to suit up and play.
Oh yeah. And now, as of yesterday afternoon, we've got the 5-on-5 rule for everyone in NCAA, where it's a proposed change where you're allowed to play 5 seasons of your sport of choice. What do you think about hearing about that yesterday?
I like it. It's so this started with the D1 Council about a month ago, which is like the first step. Again, these are coaches and athletic directors on this council, on this committee. It then passed yesterday, the D1 Board of Directors and the D1 Cabinet. So that's the final step before final approval. We got one more full NCAA council vote for approval. And the basis of it, the point of it is, let's start there. The point of it is to get rid of players asking for a waiver for a 7th year or a 6th year. There are no waivers in this. There are some exemptions or exceptions, but there are no waivers anymore. You got 5 years either from the time you graduate high school or the time you turn 19, whichever comes sooner, whichever occurred sooner. And so that takes care of a redshirt year. It takes care of injuries. It takes care of whatever. There is an exception, which you knew that they had to do for religious purposes. Otherwise, BYU would be suing them immediately, because you got guys who go on 2-year-long missions quite often after high school or after their freshman or sophomore year at BYU, at Utah, Hawaii, several other schools. To accommodate for women's sports, they have an exception for maternity leave. If you're pregnant and you have a kid and whatever, that doesn't count against your 5 for 5. But the rest of it is you got 5 years. We're not going to do waivers anymore. We're not. When you look back at some of the cases that happened in the last 2 to 3 months, where a player was suing the NCAA to get that 6th or 7th year, Trinidad Chambliss, for instance, when he missed 2 seasons when he was at Ferris State. Okay. One of them was planned ahead of time. You're going to redshirt this year. Problem was Ferris State didn't do the paperwork properly. They don't have the staff. It's a small school. They don't have 5 compliance officers like Alabama or Ohio State, right? So he's saying I shouldn't be punished for that. The NCAA says, well, you shouldn't have waited 3 years to bring it up either. You had one good year at Ole Miss, and now all of a sudden you want to play again. And they were judge shopping. I don't know if you followed that particular case. We did very closely.
Oh yeah,
the judge was in I don't even remember what county it was now. Doesn't matter. But this city was the county seat. The county or the city had like a residence of about 230 people. And there's the judge sitting there ruling on this, entire NCAA case, which was absurd. And he went back to his chambers to start writing his ruling. and Trinidad Chambliss is signing helmets for the judge and the clerks, and you're like, what are we doing here? And it was because they were court shopping, they were judge shopping, they were looking for the places that would be most inclined to want good old local team to get to keep their quarterback. This gets rid of all of that, all of it. Now, there will be lawsuits. There will be someone who sues the NCAA. It's part of the reason the NCAA is taking so long to do this. They started this process 5 months ago, and they're vetting it through lawyer after lawyer, and they actually have consulted. They actually have brought in some circuit court judges to consult on it, and what would pass legal muster and what wouldn't. Look, it's there to stabilize and simplify the system. Not have this guy gets his extra year, this guy doesn't, this guy does. Just period. This is it. This is the way this. Now, the question again goes back to what you and I started the conversation with was, does the NCAA have the legal authority to enforce it? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Along with my journalism major, way back when I was in college and my degree in broadcast journalism, I had a minor in political science and a minor in constitutional law. I never in my wildest imagination thought my background in law would merge with my background in college football into one. But with all the court cases and lawsuits and everything else, I spend as much time reading legal arguments as I do stat sheets now. And even I don't know if the NCAA can pull this off. I think they should. I think they need to try. I think it's reasonable. The one thing that people will always bring up is that without collective bargaining with the athletes, how do you have, where do you get to be able to make rules that are unilaterally enforced?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we're going to see a lot of cases, like you said.
We are. We are. And there isn't going to be collective bargaining anytime soon. I know there's always conversation about that. Look, there are 300,000 Division I college athletes right now. Approximately 2,400 of them claim to belong to some labor initiative or labor group that represents them. By my math, and I'm really bad at math, but by my math, that's about 0.0008% of the college athletes that claim labor representation. There is no collective bargaining to be had anytime soon.
Well, I know this. It's going to be a wild ride throughout the coming months and the years to come, especially to end the 2020s decade.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. But of course, some construction is going on in Wake Forest football, especially for 2026. You got some magic because, I mean, 2025 looked pretty good, especially in the first year of the Jake Dickert era.
Sure.
But it was amazing, the way, I'll be honest, I could see Wake Forest having a pretty good year in 2026. I mean, I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying they could pull off an upset over Miami in week 3 because, like, Miami is that weird team that wins games that they shouldn't and loses games they shouldn't. I mean, I know that they ended the season as the runner-up for national championships, but that doesn't change a thing with how they are in the regular season because we saw they were against Louisville. They shot themselves in the foot a lot against Louisville on that Friday night. And, SMU, I mean, I thought to myself, okay, they're out of the playoff race.
Right.
Well, not yet, but then it was, boom. They went out in November. They got on a magical run. Close, but no score against the Hoosiers. But going back to Wake Forest.
Sure.
What was something you really liked this spring, and what's something you've not liked so far?
Well, I think there's a different vibe at Wake Forest under Jake Dickert. Dave Clawson had a great run. at Wake Forest. Most successful coach they've had. Top two. But again, we go back to he wasn't really managing the new systems of college sports really well. He had back-to-back 4-8 seasons. I liked Dave. I liked covering Dave. Dave was a big thinker. He liked talking about all these big issues that you and I have been talking about with college football. He loved that. Dave was very cerebral. He was very like a professor in the way he coached and the way he taught. Jake Dickert is like the guy who wakes up, gets out of bed like he's already had 4 Red Bulls. He's high energy, ready to run through walls, and gets everybody else amped up the same way. Big difference. Jake Dickert, prior to coming to Wake Forest, had been the head coach at Washington State for 3 years. Jake Dickert's entire head coaching career has been in this new system that we talk about with the portal and NIL and revenue sharing. He doesn't know any other way. This is his entire tenure as a head coach. So he's adapting to it much better. Last year's team thrived on the defense. They had, Robbie Ashford and Deshaun Purdy rotating at quarterback. Honestly, they didn't have a quarterback all year. Neither one of them was a viable starting quarterback. And we knew it in spring. With those of us who cover the team, the reporters that hang out with when I'm there, we were going through spring and fall camp going, where there's no quarterback. I mean, it was week to week. The defense, a very, very good defense, which went from like number 60 in red zone defense in the country the year before to number 6 last year. I mean, it just jumped off the charts. Now, they lost a lot of good players off last year's defense, but they had a lot of depth. So that defense is going to be good again. It has looked really good in camp. They went out and got Gio Lopez from North Carolina as the quarterback. It's an interesting choice because you look at what Lopez did at North Carolina, and it's completely underwhelming. But you hear Gio talk about what life was like at North Carolina in year 1 under Bill Belichick, and you realize it was a bad fit for the kid. It really was. And he's now playing for Rob Ezell, who's the offensive coordinator at Wake Forest. Ezell was his quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator at South Alabama. So they have known each other for years. He was miserable at North Carolina. And he just talks about things like Bill Belichick having classical music played during practice and everything being so slow and methodical. And, these are 20. They're young men making money on one hand, but they're also still 20, 21, 22-year-old kids who want to play and have fun. And Gio had a very good spring camp. He looked really good in spring camp. Wake Forest's challenge is going to be its offensive line. It lost a lot off the offensive line and had one of those, I don't know if we want to use the tampering word, but we'll say a defense or an offensive lineman who had just signed his new contract and all of a sudden was finding a way out of the contract to go play for Texas. Hey, how did that happen so quickly, But anyway, so they've got a lot of work to do on the offensive line. The defense looks really good again. They've got several players who were they've got guys who come from NFL genes, and so they know the game really well. A new one they got this year was Brian Blades II of the famous Miami Blades heritage family.
There we go.
So yeah, and they've got Gabe Kershke, who's the son of Travis Kershke, who played at UCLA and got a couple Super Bowl rings with the Steelers. And they've got 4 or 5 guys with NFL lineage, all of them on defense. They get it, they understand it. They have a much tougher schedule than they did last year. Again, like you mentioned, Miami on a Friday night. On a Friday night. Seriously, Friday night? Wake agreed to move the game for more money from the ACC network and ESPN. It was grim. There you go. There's the schedule. So look, they've got to play Miami. They got to play Louisville. Those are tough games. I'm never sold on NC State lately.
Oh.
How they got Merrimack, in there is beyond me, but whatever. SMU obviously going to be very tough.
NC State's going to be mediocre as long as they got Dave Doreen.
I look, yeah, Dave Dorn and I have had our moments together, and
SMU.
Yeah, but SMU is going to be good. I think Duke is going to be good again. I think Georgia Tech is, we got to see because they'll have a new quarterback. But it's a tough schedule. Are they going to go 9-4 again? Look, I didn't think last year in the preseason poll at the ACC meetings, I picked them to go 5-7, and they went 9-4. With the bowl win in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Will they go 9-4 again? I think if they go 8-5, it's been another good season then for Jake Dicker.
Oh, I couldn't hear the last part. The net's just messing around with me because apparently it's got some bad weather over in Bama. Good grief.
Yeah, no, I know we're getting it in North Carolina tomorrow. I think if they go 8-5, they'll have had another good season. I think I'm losing you again.
Oh, that's for sure, though. One last thing I was curious about. So we know about like Rob Ezel being the offensive coordinator for Wake Forest. Are you worried that he could leave Wake Forest after 2026 for another offensive coordinator position elsewhere, like SEC or Big Ten?
Sure. Look, when you have success, that's the reality. You're going to lose some of your staff. They're going to get bigger jobs elsewhere. That's the reality. Dickert has surrounded himself mostly with assistant coaches who he has a history with. He knows them. Scotty Hazelton worked with him at Wyoming and at Washington State. He's got a lot of coaches where they were assistants together somewhere else, or they were part of his Washington State staff. Rob Ezel doesn't fit into that. He doesn't fall under that category. So his, I guess I would call emotional ties to Jake Dickert don't exist. It's, what's best for him and the family. And again, if you have success, coaches move on. That's what happens.
There you go. And, if Ryan Grubb was to leave or Alabama decided they weren't happy, which, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the more likelihood is going to be is Ryan Grubb could leave for a head coaching position somewhere in the West Coast, something like that. And then, like, Ezel comes back home to Bama and does some more Saban impressions.
It's true. Yeah, and they're good. They're really good, But this you look at all that, you bring up Saban, you look at all the coaches that left Saban, after a certain amount of years, and that's just the reality of a successful program. Wake Forest isn't quite there yet. They had one good year. Let's see what happens this year. But if Dicker can repeat that kind of success for another year or two, sure, you start to lose staff. It's, but that's where it's important for a coach to always have a pipeline of who knows what, and who knows who. It's funny. I covered the last 2 years the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association. Their annual meetings are in Charlotte, And it's funny, we sit in on some of the meetings and some of the committee meetings and talk to coaches. But what's funny, everyone who is a college coach, NAIA, junior college, all the way up to D1, they're members of the AFCA. They're at this convention. So it's at the convention center in Charlotte, right? And if you're standing up on the second floor and you look down into the main lobby area right by the Starbucks, it is just one big mass of college football coaches glad handing, networking, especially the young assistants or the D2 coaches, making sure that they're meeting, the right guys at the D1 level, making sure that, they're saying hi to the guy who may have a job for them at some point in a year or two. It is one massive networking gathering. It's kind of funny to watch a bunch of little ants running around making sure they see each other.
Oh man, you got me thinking about a Buzz Life now.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's exactly like that.
Oh man, cue the Buzz Life music. That's
sure. Right. But, that's right.
There we go. And that caps episode 100 of the Jacksonian. All right, here with yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and the managing editor of Last Word of College Football, Tony Siracusa, one of the greatest, best legends in college football writing. I'm going to tell you right now, he is a go-to, especially for Wake Forest and everything involving college football. And for those who don't know about you and the magic you create, where can people find you?
Yeah, okay. Well, you can go to lastwordonsports.com and click on the college football link. And there you go. You got it right there. You beat me to it. We are on X. I still call it Twitter because I want to.
Right.
You know what? Because you can send a tweet to someone, but you can't send an X to someone. That sounds like something that gets you in trouble. We're on Blue Sky, as you see right there. And then my personal one, I'm on both of those. Oh, by the way, we also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page for people who do that. And then there you go. I'm on at Tony Bruin on Blue Sky and on X as well. So there you have it. You can get on and yell at me about things you disagree with me with. And there you see the Muck Rack contact information as well. So we are pretty darn easy to find.
There you go, man. Tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix about the magic that Tony Siracusa brings all right there on Last Word of College Football, on Last Word on Sports. And, of course, you can check me out right here on Jackson Johnson 979, where I am back from my hibernation stage, so to speak. I've been letting myself get too busy, but I will say we're going to bring you 100 more episodes of awesomeness all right here on the Jacksonian, on Jackson Johnson 979. 263 subs away from that magic number 1,000. And also, you'll definitely be seeing me collab with my guys, Will and D and Jeffrey, at All He Talks Sports, where he talks sports every single day, or at least he tries to. And you can check me out on Jackson VOCFB on @Twitter, where I've got some more updates on what I've got going on in my world. And you can also check me out on Instagram and Threads at JacksonJohnson543908. And, of course, you can check me out on Jackson Johnson 97 Blue Sky Social, where my friend Mike Debate of Patriots on SI says, where the skies are blue. Some say the skies are gray, but I say to each their own. The skies are everywhere. Blue, gray, light, rainbow, everything. We got it all. And, of course, you can check me out Monday nights at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Alabama at The Voice of College Football. And you can also check me out on SEC at The Voice of College Football for SEC Live, 8 p.m. Eastern with my guy Tucker Harlan and Andrew Miller. As I'm going to tell you right now, we've got some magic coming your way. And especially with Thursday night on the Alabama College Show, where Only Talk Sports myself take your calls at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, discussing your Crimson Tide. And with that being said, we wish you all a happy rest of the week and to stay safe, stay cool, stay away from that pollen, stay away from the tornadoes. They are scary. I'm going to tell you right now. I hate thunderstorms and I hate lightning, but I will say on the bright side, the rain helps the plants grow. So like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video whatsoever. And we'll be seeing y'all soon. Take care, everybody.